China and Russia are trying to take over the moon. Wait a minute, trying? It looks like they might get it. Let's get to it.
To
I don't know what.
infinity and beyond.
I should have done that myself. Should we
I've
get
had
right
that.
to that? You know what? Let's save that just a little bit.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We're going to talk about it. But we do have some Android news because the big Android barbecue. Oh, I'm just kidding. You have to go
I
way
missed
back to
that.
understand that. The what do they call the Android show? I believe.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that was out, and they talked about some upcoming things that are. Well, they also talked about some current stuff, and this is all funny because we could talk about Apple in contrast, and there's a massive widening gap of features on Android compared to Apple at this point because everything that Apple is doing is like, oh, I can do this and I can do that, and I need little assistance to do it. But all that Apple intelligence isn't there. If you think Gemini is only this far ahead of it, or this far below it, or on par, you're wrong.
Think
There's,
again.
yeah, there's a lot coming up too.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what they're doing with it. And I watched it after the fact because I was at work all day. You saw it live. You might have a better memory of it because it was more exciting.
Yeah. A lot of it's stuff we talked about. But first off, let me just lay a groundwork, or not groundwork. So you understand what this is all about. Google I/O is coming up next week. This was like an Android I/O. I don't think they've ever done this before, at least not that I can ever remember. And I think it's happened because of all the leaks from all this stuff that is coming out. So they just came out with this Android show. It literally lasted less than half an
months
hour.
ago. They announced this months ago that they were going to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is literally less than a half an hour, or maybe 30 minutes right on the minute. It was like super
I think
short.
it was 20 some odd minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, super short, and it just goes over all these features. So, of course, they had all these different, product managers coming out, kind of like they do, with the Google I/O, and talking about the different features. And, it's a lot of stuff that we've already talked about on the channel. And
Yeah.
but of course, I didn't know this. Lionel did, and he probably just didn't share it with me. But Gemini is coming to Google TV and to Android Auto. And me personally, the Android Auto is one of the things I'm actually most looking forward to, only because with my new job, I'm going to be in the car for 2 hours a day. So it can actually be very, very useful. But other than that, I mean, everything was pretty much like stuff we've already talked about. And it's just talking about how, like, for example, it's not just they wanted to make sure and confirm, like, listen, this is not just a Pixel rollout. This is a Android rollout. So we're talking OnePlus, we're talking the Nothing phone, we're talking Samsung, Google. I mean, all the Android manufacturers will have the same type of capability for the most part. I'm sure there's probably some real specific Pixel only features, but the hold the power button, invoke Gemini is going to be the same.
Right.
So they just wanted to make sure, I guess,
or
everybody
swipe
knew
up
that.
from the bottom corner.
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah.
prefer.
So that's
like
really kind of
that.
what the whole thing was about. Like, here's what's coming, here's what's going to be in, here are all the phones it works on, and it was kind of really like just a snapshot of stuff we already knew. Except, again, I didn't know it was coming to the Google TV and the Android Auto.
It
so
should
that was
also
cool.
be noted that many of the features that you can use on Gemini with an Android phone today, many of them are available on an iPhone, and those that have decided to use it have discovered that the only reason why they even bother with Siri at all is to get it to do something directly related to being on the phone, or something that they have to use, because Gemini on an iPhone won't open your email, for instance, or send an email for you. But it can still be used to, if I'm not mistaken, I think you can still use it. I could be wrong. We have to check this out. But I think on an iPhone, it can still be used to control your smart home on an iPhone. I think. I think it's just
Um,
phone related stuff that it will
yeah, that
not
I'm not sure about. We'd have
operate.
to look at that for sure. Because I,
Just to be clear, on most devices at this point, even Android phones, it is an app you put on, and there's a bunch of stuff it can do, and some things it won't do. But on not only Pixels but Samsung devices, it's pretty much baked in.
yeah,
Even though technically you can take it off of some Samsung devices, like the S23, when you put it on an S23, it behaves as if it were baked in.
yeah.
So that's a Samsung thing because Samsung has a lot to do with Google and how they work together.
Yeah, they did
So
mention that and how Samsung is this direct partner. And actually, here is something that actually I almost forgot about. So apparently, Samsung and Google are going in on a type of VR headset using Gemini and some of the Samsung
yeah,
technology. So
yeah,
that could be really cool.
that's again. Are you just hearing about that now?
Well, yeah, I did not
They've been
know they
talking
were
about
like
that for
developing a whole new thing with Gemini built into it. So, I mean, I know that I've heard
well,
about this VR headset, but I didn't. Again, it's going to have
yeah,
Gemini
yeah, but
baked into it.
the Gemini being built in was kind of a no brainer. It was obvious they were going to do that. But if I don't remember exactly, but did they not mention it at I/O last year, or was it just after I/O that it came up? I don't remember. But they've been talking about it for a long, long time. And there's been people that have been doing little demonstrations. It's been alpha and beta testing for many months at this point. So I think they're beyond that point. I think they're basically putting the final touches on, we're probably going to see something on the market next year. Maybe this year. I doubt it,
I doubt this
but
year.
but I'm thinking next year. But the first ones that come out, here's the thing. I think what Google wants to do, and Samsung, is have it so that it's not like, oh, there's just this one headset. Like, okay, they come up with the one thing and it's like VR or AR. This thing is the platform that they're working on is capable of both AR and VR and can be done in virtually any form that uses your eyes to see it. So the full headset that you can't see past, and so similar to Apple's, which is what they have been working on, very similar. That's the Samsung one that they've worked on together, and that one
Hmm.
was probably the first one we're going to see. But there's also AR glasses that are just basically going to be like sunglasses with the thing. And that would probably be the closest thing to what you. For those of you who don't know, Robert many years ago used to be called by many people a glass hole. I did, I said
Yes,
glass, not the other word.
yes,
If no one's heard of Google Glass, that was a thing, and it never really technically went out of beta before it was scrapped. It has long since become part of another technology, and no, Google is not working on anything that came out of that. They've gone a completely different direction to make
yeah.
this. But
I wore that.
Robert
I wore
loved
that
his
proudly.
yes. Yes, and he posted pictures and videos, talked about it. And honestly, had they done that, you know what the problem with it was? It was what 10 years ahead of its time.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
because
was
look
the
at Ray
problem.
Ban. Look at the Ray Ban glasses that are
Yeah,
that have made a
exactly.
built in. They look
Yeah,
and
exactly. And that's already
great.
working now. Just can you imagine having that,
Yeah,
but with Gemini
yeah,
Live in it?
yeah,
Yeah, that's a totally different story. Um, but imagine it with Gemini Live, but able to do it to work almost the same way that you had Google Glass work, but totally with your voice and never having to do this.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and no, you wouldn't have that weird thing. You would just be wearing glasses. But here's the thing, and we should say this: once you do get them, and many of you out there will, do not walk into a public change facility and be that person. Uh-uh. Okay. I'm just saying. No.
Well, in true form, though, just like how a lot of technologies do that don't the first rendition doesn't actually
Yeah.
make it. It
Yeah.
started the ball rolling, and it's kind of like the
Yeah.
Ray-Bans are a child of Google Glass. Even though Google Glass is dead,
Yeah.
which is good. I mean, it kind of like spurred the market. Like, oh, we should probably look at that because
Yeah.
that was a good idea. But like you said, it was just
I mean,
ahead of its
seriously, I
time.
wish I had a picture I could put up of you with the Google Glass. Right.
I could probably hunt one,
And
but
yeah.
it's definitely, I think, a cool technology that has its place. But yeah, there's been a couple times I was threatened to be thrown out. Like we went to a concert one time,
Yeah.
and I had the Google Glass on, knowing I was just going to take a few pictures, right? Because if anybody knows Google Glass, even though they said it could work, you could not stream from Google Glass. First off, if you did get it to work, you're probably going to catch your head on fire because it got so hot. Okay. But I had a guy at the concert I was at threatened to throw me out because
Oh wow.
I was going to, he didn't, the streaming device is what he called it. I was like, sir, you can't stream with these. Like it doesn't like it requires cell service through my phone. My phone doesn't even have cell service in here. Look at your phone. And he refused to believe me. And I said, sir, so I can take my phone and you can use your phone all you want. I'm like, do you hear what you're saying? How ridiculous is it that I can use my phone, which is
Which you
10
can stream
times
with, by
more
the way.
powerful that I can stream with, and I can't use this to just take a few pictures that I can't stream with.
Yeah, that's kind of dumb.
I got done arguing with him. I put him on my wife's purse because I'm like, yeah, I don't want to get thrown out of the concert. But I'm just like,
Yeah.
I was like, do you not understand the ignorance of that? And he looked at me. He's like, I don't give a shit, sir. Take them off or get out. I'm like, okay. And my wife's like, take them off. Take them off.
I don't want to leave.
I'm like, I'm trying to prove a point here. Like, it's just, I don't know. It was dumb. But most of the time, it was fine. It was just a few,
Well, it must have been a
few
good
instances.
concert. I'm assuming you weren't at a Charlie Pride concert.
No.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, but yeah. So they were a good time. I got laughed at, didn't care.
Yeah.
And they still tease me about it today. How ridiculous
Right.
I looked, and I didn't care.
Well,
my wife laughed at me, and
I was jealous.
okay.
I wanted to get a pair so bad, and God, there was no way. I didn't have any. What was it? Over $2,000?
1,500.
1,500. Well, it was probably
Well,
well,
9,000
no,
Canadian.
No, the Canadian dollar was actually doing well at the time. As a matter of fact, that was around the time the Canadian dollar briefly even went higher than the American dollar. So it would have been roughly around the same price here, anyways. Also, there were no tariffs at the time.
Yeah.
We didn't have the same free trade agreement, therefore trade was free. Uh, there's,
Well,
so many
the
ironies. And isn't
when
it
I first
ironic?
got them,
Don't you
because I
think?
flew to New York to pick them up because you had to go to an actual Google store and sit
Right.
down with the rep, and they showed you how to use it. And so I flew to New York and picked them up, and like for the first month or two, I would get stopped like constantly. Oh my gosh, is that Google Glass? Like it was like this big, like everybody was like, and everyone was like really enamored with the technology. I'm like, yeah, just wink. They're like, just wink. I'm like, yeah, just wink. And then you would wink and you hear it go tring, because that's, they made this like ringing noise, when it's like, oh my God, oh look, I can see the picture. Oh my gosh, And so it was really cool. But then after that honeymoon phase wore off, and they're like, oh, there's a glass hole,
Yeah,
That became a glass hole.
You know what the thing is it really wasn't that many people out there that were thinking that people were glass holes. It was
No.
first of all a small group of and we'll call you all beta testers because that's what you were.
Oh, it was 100%.
Yeah, and there was a small amount of them that kind of were glass holes.
Yeah.
But you get a bad reputation if you take one person in a crowd of 100, but they all hang out together, even if they're not in the same room. They all become part of the same gang in the eyes of everyone
Yeah.
else without thinking about it. And
Sure.
the thing is that there's a lot of people that just understand it. So there were people writing articles. Oh, this is the reason why this is bad, and all the things. And people are going to walk into swimming pools and see young people and
Yeah.
like you
Not
know,
not everybody is.
just go to
Yeah.
the darkest corners of the earth every time there's a new technology, right?
Yeah.
Rock and roll made everyone
Yeah.
turn into the devil too, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
and well, and for a long
so
time, so I was a part of that very first group, the first 10,000 that they released to the public, and it stayed
right.
10,000 for a long time, and so there wasn't a lot of people. I mean, 10,000 is not a lot of people, obviously, out of the
Not when you
population of
spread
the
it out
United States.
all over North America.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So,
it stayed kind of
oh,
this.
and back then Canada was included in these things, by the way.
Yes,
Canadians
yes.
could get it. You had to go to the States to get it, but you could get it. Sorry, go on.
Yes. No, I was just saying it stayed kind of this, whoa, technology for a while, and then it quickly wore off. And then of course, as us testers kept like then reporting to Google, and they were actually in the beginning very good about software updates and, you know, improving this functionality and that interface and all that. But we quickly realized, yeah, these things are not gonna. And I literally I sold mine for $800 just before you couldn't sell them anymore because nobody wanted them. So
I
the
still would have taken
supply
it.
and demand.
If I had
No,
the
I sold
money,
them.
yeah, no, but if I had the money at the time, I would have bought it from you. I would have
Yeah.
had no
Well,
problem with that. And I probably would have got sick of them after a few months myself, but I still would have thought the money was well spent. I would have loved the technology. And then I probably would have
yeah.
passed them on to my dad, who would have loved them for a while. And then he would have ended up selling them, you know?
Well, I have
And
zero
so,
regret of spending the money. I mean, even though it
yeah.
ended up being a waste, like I don't know, 6 or 9 months later, I really enjoyed being a part of that beta test. It was really cool,
Yeah.
and
Well, you
it
basically spent
was.
$700 to enjoy it for 8 or 9 months.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
It's not
So
bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, $100 a month.
Yeah. There you go.
So, anyways, I'm not really sure how we got on that tangent, but yeah, I guess
It
because
happens
the
every show,
yeah, it
every
does,
week.
and
Yeah, every
that's
week.
what it's about.
So,
We
but
don't,
we didn't really mention some of these new Gemini features coming up. So we got to get to that. Gemini Live. For those of you who don't know, you have the still relatively new feature of being able to not just see your screen, so you can actually put screen share on, and you can actually say, "Okay, hey Gemini, I'm looking at this document." And you scroll as you're scrolling it, it sees it, and it can help you with anything or give you advice. And it doesn't have to be that document; it could be a web page you're looking at. And you want to know more about it. So rather than
let
having to
me
sit
let me
home late and
interrupt
go into
you on
Gemini,
something because I actually
what?
used this the other
Yeah,
day for very here,
something specific, I hope, because
very
I lose my
specific.
train of
So,
thought. I was getting
um,
somewhere.
yeah, very specific. So I'm doing this tech review on this device, and they just sent it to me, and they
And
have
we're
oh,
not
this is
allowed
their
to know
name.
anything about it yet, are we?
Well, no, I'll be putting. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But I had no idea how to pronounce the name, and because there's
Well, there
nothing
you
to
go.
say how. So I go, So I pulled up Gemini, and I turned on my camera, and I said, "Hey, how do you pronounce that name?" And it says, "Oh, that's the Inu, P6." I knew exactly what it was, and it
Did it,
spelled
did it
and
say it in the correct accent?
no, but it did
It
say
will do
that
that
is.
sometimes.
It's pronounced similar to Ineeu. So you knew how to kind of like say it in you, and I'm like, oh, genius, man. I was like, thanks. Like, and now I know how to say the name of the product and not embarrass myself and the brand go, that's not how you say my name. So sorry. I just wanted that because it's very relative to what you're saying right there about the
Yeah, no,
camera.
no, I agree.
Real word usage.
that's a
Yeah.
perfect example of that. But that's the live you were doing, which I was just getting
Yes.
to, right? So you can also share the live camera. I did that actually just the other day when I went into the grocery store and I decided, you know what, I want some yogurt. I don't want the little stupid little teeny weeny little baby things. I want a big tub of yogurt, right? So
Yo,
eat as
plate.
much as I want, put it in the fridge, go back and eat some more. But I only eat yogurt with fruit at the bottom. I like to stir it myself and have that fresh fruit, not that fruity flavor made with fruit juices It just the textures of the yogurt's different and everything, right? So I didn't want a yogurt that was gelled, that had gelatin in it, basically, because that kind of has gelatin. I don't want that. So I turned on my Google Live, shared the camera, and I showed it the entire rack or shelf in the freezer or chill, whatever, the fridge section. And I said,
Yep.
I'm looking for a yogurt with fruit on the bottom, and it would say, okay, I see this brand. That one might have fruit in the bottom. Can you take a closer look? I take a closer look. If you look at the ingredients, it will tell you this and that's how you'll know whether it's fruit on the bottom or whether it's just made with fruit juices or whatever it said, right? And we went over everything, and it told me, well, maybe if you look on the bottom, because sometimes on the bottom shelf, and the blah, blah, blah. So I did. I said, no, they only have the small little ones. I don't want the small little ones. Oh, Oh, I see. There's only small little ones there, so you should look on the top. And went over, and it never ended up finding anything. And it finishes with, "I'm very sorry." But the point is that had there actually been any, and I don't know why a grocery store doesn't have at least one with fruit on the bottom, but it legitimately did not because I checked them all. So Gemini helped me, and it would have helped me better if they actually had anything that I wanted. But I've done a lot of things with it, and the point is that those things are available now. However, there are some new features that they've got coming to do with how Gemini Live works, and one of them is going to be that they're going to put the memory feature in that we've been talking about that ChatGPT has. But the difference is not only will you have it on live, but you'll have it on live with both screen share and camera share. So you can turn on your camera and say, okay, I showed you this room yesterday, and I know that my remote control was on that table yesterday. Can you tell me where it was? Because it's not there now, and it might help you find. Now that's just a stupid bad example, but there could be a number of other things that that you want to do with it because it has the memory. You turn it on, you're sharing the camera, and you're saying, "I know I parked my car over in this part of the parking lot," because you can actually do that when you park the car. And you say, "Here's my car. This is where I've parked. Please remember that." And then just go shopping in the mall, and you come out, and instead of using Google Maps, you get back into the area, and you go, "Dang it, I don't see my car." Now I know most of you are thinking, "Why don't you just push the button on the remote?" But this part's for fun. Come on, you hold the camera up and pan it around the area and say, "Did I park my car in this area?" And it'll say, "I recognize this. I believe you were closer to that sign, or you might have been parked over at D12 or something like that, right?" And it will tell you. It can actually tell you, "Oh no, you're gonna have to go left or right if you pan around enough so it sees it."
Well, and
So
what would be the smart thing to do is when you get out, start it and go, "Hey, remember this?
yeah,
Where
that's
is
what
where
I
I
just said.
parked?"
Yes,
And but before
right.
you get to the point where like, "Oh, tell me where I parked," that way you know exactly like,
Yeah, and I
"Oh,
did say that.
D3."
Yeah, I did specifically say that if you don't do that before you leave the car and walk into the mall, it will like I don't know where you parked. you know, and then you're back to pushing the button on the remote as you walk around the parking lot, which does work, by the way. So that's still a thing.
Well, I wonder if you could like if they had if like you look at your room like you're talking about the remote example, but
Right.
let's say you're sitting downstairs and you're wanting to buy a chair and you're not sure the space you have on a wall. I wonder if you could say, "Hey, you remember when I showed you my office area? Do you think there's enough room on that right wall to put a chair?" I
I
wonder if it would
believe
be
it
like,
might, but it would probably say, "Well, I can't really tell the dimensions. Can you tell me how big that space is, or something like that?" And if you
yeah.
have any idea, then it might be able to tell you, "Well, that particular chair that you showed me looked like this particular type of chair. It should fit in that area as long as you have enough room between this and that." I mean, it does stuff like that, and it will deduce
Or,
that kind of
or you could
information.
say, "Oh, I want to buy a chair that's 4x6 or whatever." Because there's apps already that you can take out
Yeah,
and
yeah,
do
yeah,
digital measurement.
yeah.
So
Of
I don't know.
course.
That might be interesting to see.
And you do that natively on an iPhone too, by the way. It's
Right.
unfortunate that
So
their
you know,
LiDAR thing. That's actually pretty handy.
yeah.
I call it like I see it. I wouldn't mind having LiDAR on my phone, to be honest with you. That would be pretty cool. But they're not going to do it because that's just another expense that no one wants to put in a Pixel phone. So, having said that, what are some of the other things? Because we're gonna have to obviously have to get to what some people might be saying. Why aren't you talking about what you clickbaited us into? We're gonna get to it. But what were some of those other Android things? Because I'm trying to remember now. Sorry, Gemini related. Oh, Android Auto.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
What was so specific about it? It's just that Gemini is going to be coming to Android Auto, so you can have Gemini. Now, this is very important. Gemini Live will be coming to Android Auto. So once again, you'll be able to actually leave it on while you drive. Now, here, this is going to sound kind of funny, but I have driven at times back into the city from wherever I've been. I've been out all day. I'm not so tired that I'm worried about that I'm on the verge of falling asleep or anything like that. I'm still safe to drive home, but I'm getting like physically tired. Not like I'm going to fall asleep, but just like I wish there was something else. You put on music and you start to get sick and tired of that, right? Uh, but you got Gemini Live. You can start asking it questions. You can tell you a story. Ask it to find you a podcast to play instead, right? And or you could tell it, oh, there's traffic. Looks like it's going up ahead there. Can you maybe find me an alternate route? But this is all live, so you don't have to push a button and say, hey, you know who, because it's just on right now. And obviously, it wouldn't be on while you're listening to music. But if you have it there, and I know it sounds weird, a lot of people will be like, why would I do that? If you're driving alone for 4 hours, believe it or
Yeah.
not, talking to Gemini might not be the worst thing in the world. Keep you awake. It'll probably continuously remind you, as long as you can tell it that you're driving. It'll probably constantly, not constantly, but every now and then remind you that you are driving. Keep your eye on the road. And you can actually have a conversation. And it's as weird as some people might think that is. If you haven't actually had a conversation with Gemini or Chat GPT, you should really try it.
Yeah, that's really
If
cool.
nothing more than just for fun, you should try it.
Yeah.
And for those who have issues and they get a little depressed once in a while, and you're worried. I don't have anybody to talk to. I should mention that while joking about being depressed, Gemini said, "If you need any help, I'm here. Would you like to call anybody?" And it suddenly dawned on me that it is actually prepared to talk to you in a completely different manner if you need to just vent and you tell it that and it'll do. And I'm pretty sure ChatGPT will do the same thing. I haven't confirmed that yet, but I know somebody who can.
Yeah.
And we're gonna plug somebody else's channel again.
Taco Reina and Taco in the Machine.
That's right.
Episode 10 is another banger, guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one thing I saw Sam Altman, I saw just a brief, I didn't read the whole article, but he made mention, he's like, the Gen Z is, yeah, it's so conversational. It's so good. They're actually using it to make life choices. And he's like, yeah,
Yeah.
they're actually making it to make life. And I'm not so sure that's the right necessarily
I don't
way
think
to
so.
go. But, and I guess it depends on what choice you're trying to make or get assistance with in making.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I might ask it, like, what are the downsides of this or what's the upside of that or
Well,
something like
yeah, if
that.
you're
But
asking it to help you make a decision, that's one thing. But if you're just
yeah,
saying, "Oh yeah, I know I need to do this and I need to do that. I need you to lay it out for me and I'm going to go that way." That's just dumb, right? Then you're going to end up
yeah,
being an accountant when you should have been a singer. You're going to end up thinking you're going to be a singer just because you told Chat GPT that you could, and you
yeah,
should have been a lawyer. It's like, um, I every day I use Gemini to help me make decisions. I do not let it make decisions for me. There's a
right.
huge difference.
Yeah, there
Huge.
is.
One of the decisions that I would like Gemini to help me make is to figure out how in the hell the United States of America decided to drop their idea that they needed to do something with the moon and let China and Russia take it. Okay, we'll get into that now. Segueing, brought to you by dad jokes. Anyways,
To
bad dad jokes,
infinity
I
and
should say.
beyond.
That's right. Uh, China and I was going to say China and Gemini. China and Russia have, as they put it, inked a deal to jointly, I was going to say build, but I don't know if that's the right word. Put together a nuclear power plant on the moon. Now, before anybody thinks that sounds like really grandiose and out there, this is something that people have been discussing the possibility of realistically for more than 20 years. Movies that were made on this subject seemed like complete science fiction in the
Yeah.
1970s, but by the late 1990s, it was obviously the next evolution of adventure outside the planet. Because the thing is that there's things that can be done on the moon. I just hope they don't decide to go full scale mining, because how much can the moon be mined before it loses its orbit and totally screws everyone on Earth?
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
has also been a
it's probably
TV
a little
show
more
about that
delicate
called
than
Space
Earth.
1999.
Yeah.
Pluto Nash was interesting because there was whole communities on the moon. And in all honesty, I do think that in the future it might actually make sense to actually build enough habitats on the moon that it's tourism. And I don't see any reason why not. And I wouldn't do it now, and I'll be too old or dead by the time it becomes a reality. But if it had happened earlier and it was a possibility, I'd gladly pay money that I could afford, which I don't, to get a trip to the moon to stay, like a couple of weeks on the moon. Take a
Well,
few days to get there, spend a couple of weeks, a few days back. The views would be insane on the way back.
I think the only way that we are going to sustain the kind of human growth we're seeing and expect to have is through nuclear technology. I really do. I'm a big nuclear proponent. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
obviously, if things go awry, it can go really awry. But the
Modern
technologies today,
technology makes it a
so
lot
safe.
easier for that to not be a problem.
But think, I mean,
Also, these are mini reactors. The one they're building on the moon is considerably smaller. Obviously, cooling is not going to be as much of an issue. But yeah, they're smaller reactors, and there are mini reactors being built on Earth. By the way, the states is
but keep in mind the fleet of aircraft carriers in the United States Navy are powered by nuclear reactors.
yeah, and not just those submarines. Not all the
Right.
submarines.
Well,
but most of
I'm not going to get through all the different devices. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Obviously,
there's a lot.
you see big. You think aircraft carrier. Okay, and
Right.
that aircraft carrier can literally stay out indefinitely, but it's got to have food. It's got to have fresh water. It's got to transfer crew on and off. So that's the
Yeah.
reason why it comes in. And other maintenance to hull and other things, but not nuclear,
Yeah.
reactor maintenance. Now, they're also, this has been in a prototype work as well for a nuclear reactors that are small enough to like power a specific city. Like this city has its own little reactor kind of thing. I don't see it being completely out of the question that one day you're going to be able to have like move into a neighborhood that your neighborhood has its own nuclear reactor or something, some kind of power grid of its
Well, that
own.
is that technically
But-
that is already possible. Just it's obviously not cost effective yet.
Right.
But mini reactors now are not as mini as they. It's not literally mini. It's not like buying a toy car versus a real car.
It's
it's
not.
not
It's not
that
Back to
many.
the Future. In
Yeah,
the back of your car, stick a banana in it.
yeah, yeah, right. We're not there, but there are uh, mini reactors being built in the states now too. Even I believe, or they're inked, or they're getting ready to build one. Something I can't remember where. I wouldn't doubt if it was somewhere in upstate New York or something like that. I don't really know for sure, but the thing about it is that the technology has evolved enough that 30 years from now, a lot of the older big reactors will probably be able to be shut down because inevitably they'll get to the point where you can get more power out of the mini reactor than you can out of a full size reactor that you have now, or at least most of that much. But instead of having to be another 500 miles away to the next reactor, there could be none, much like what you're saying, only 5 or 10 or 20 miles away. So if this can produce 50% of the power of a full size reactor, and then every 20, 50 miles or whatever, you can put another one, then it could maybe take 4 or 5 way more efficient ones to run an entire city and the entire urban area, not just like the one city. Like if it were Dallas, it wouldn't just be Dallas, it would be the entire Dallas Fort Worth area. If it were
Right.
Toronto, it would be the entire greater Toronto area. That kind of thing, and something like New York would obviously take way more,
Well, the thing
Chicago,
about this whole
right?
moon
But
thing, though, isn't for hey, let's build some really awesome, life sustaining nuclear. It's dominance. Let's just be real. Let's
yeah,
just be
well,
honest.
first of all,
They want
what
military
there
dominance, and
is
that's
there
one way
there
of doing
there
it.
is research, so they're saying, is the main reason, and
Okay.
honestly, for some part of it, I believe that's true. There's always going to be truth in BS. And
Yes.
so a lot of that is going to be true. First of all, it would be very difficult to go through all of that without research being part of it. Dominance, though, 100%. Why? America made it to the moon first.
Right.
Chinese have never gone. Now Russia and China combined get to say, hey, we got to go to the moon and get robots. I forgot to mention that part to build the reactor autonomously,
Yeah.
and then we can actually have people go and stay there and work. Sure,
And that will
why
be the
not?
Skynet home base.
Yeah, why not? Why not? And honestly, though, until something bad happens, I don't really see a problem with it. The only problem I see with it is if America waits too long, there may be some BS where they do try to claim. If America does something dumb like try to set their base up within 3 feet of theirs, that's dumb. So I think they got two choices: either strike a deal to actually be part of it, which is not the idea to go right now, or build one uh, as far away on the moon as possible, nowhere near each other.
Yeah, but the
Period.
moon is a
Because
speck compared
inevitably,
to
the way they're
Earth.
going right now, China and Russia are going to inevitably end up claiming parts of the moon. And then America's going to have to claim another part of the moon. It's unfortunate, but probably after we're already dead. But at some point in the future, somebody will be saying, you remember back in 2089 with the moon wars? So,
Moon wars.
yeah, the moon
Yeah,
wars. Yeah.
I don't know what to think about all that. I
My
think it's kind
daddy
of nut.
fought in the moon wars. He
Yeah.
took down 17 of them aliens who thought they could get involved in our war.
Uh huh. Yeah.
There were no aliens, sir. My daddy said there was.
Yeah. It's reminds me you saying that of the gosh, what is the name of that movie? Will
Pluto
Smith?
Nash.
No.
Oh, darn.
Um
I like that
man, I
movie.
can't believe
People
I know
tagged it, but
it's
Pluto Nash is a
it
good movie.
so Will Smith, he's in the military, this military base, and this country bumpkin guy comes in his little motorhome because everyone's trying to go area 51.
Oh,
Gosh,
for God's sake, you're talking about. Oh, now you got me forgetting the name of it. Independence Day.
Independence Day. But you remember when they were pulling up and he's country as hell talking about aliens and all that's going to be what it's
Yeah,
going to be
yeah,
like.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it turned out he wasn't lying. It's all
No,
true.
he wasn't lying. Yeah. So,
Oh,
anyways, well,
boy.
we'll have to see how all that pans out. But
Yeah.
so back on the Android, because we did miss something. I just realized is talking about that advanced security. What do they call it? Advanced protection.
Yes.
And Android 16.
There you go.
Obviously, look, cyber threats of all sorts are just growing in popularity. Matter of fact, I think Lionel's work just had a cyber incident that they had to recover from. It's everywhere to everyone. It doesn't matter. No one's excluded, including your phone. And so, I'm not going to get into all the specifics. There's so much detail to it. I can leave a link in the description to go to an article you can read, but, it's got some very, very advanced protections that like lock memory down, lock like what folders you can, write to, how you get into your phone. There's a lot involved in it. Now, one thing I just want to caution everybody is like these technologies and security is 100% awesome. I think you should definitely look into it, but be cautious and make sure you don't lock yourself out, because if you do, you might lose your entire account. Okay. Cause sometimes it's not reversible. And that's the point of the security, making it so someone else can't just come take your phone, send a message to Google saying, "Oh, I just got my phone back. Can you help me get into my account?" Or, something stupid like that. Right. So you have to think about like why they're doing it, to protect you from someone stealing your phone, pretending to be you, and getting access to your account. So be careful. Do whatever precautions it tells you to do to make sure you maintain a way of account recovery, and you do it, do whatever you need to do or what to do.
As we say a lot, if there's an opportunity to create a passkey for whatever service or site, create the passkey. Here's the best thing I can tell you. This is an example. You walk up to your house and you put the key in the door. You turn it. You walk in the house. You lock the door. You put the groceries in the fridge. You go to bed. You wake up in the morning and your TV's gone. What the hell happened? Well, your key was still in the door. Right. A passkey, however, would be more like the key disappears after you turn the lock. Because you don't really actually have the actual key. It just lets you in because you had the biometric. So your thumbprint could open the door and a key opens. Go to bed now. House is still locked. Your TV's still there in the morning. Stupid analogy, maybe, but that's the closest I can get to what a passkey does in stupid analogies. There's probably better analogies, but, for people who say, no, I don't want, because it's not secure if I use a fingerprint, because somebody might see it. But locks that use a fingerprint are going to be a little bit more secure. Okay, here's where I don't like them on your front door is a code, because it doesn't take much to use a pair of binoculars or a zoom lens to see somebody actually putting their code into their front door. So I don't like those. Interestingly enough, I believe some of the newer ones will allow you to actually do it so that you have to do both a code and biometric.
Well, and also too, think about this on the codes, things wear down over time. And so it'd be easy if you don't change your passcode to like wear the 6 off the 6, right? So they know obviously you're hitting 6 because the 6 is gone. So then it's just a matter of like, if it's a 4-pin code, it's not going to be that hard to probably figure out in a few
Yeah,
tries
two
what that
six
code
five
might be.
nine, two
Yeah,
nine six five, 2956, nine five
yeah.
six two
We've
nine
done it
six
in
five
COD
two
all the
nine two
time
five
to
six.
get into safe.
In COD.
Yeah, this campaign when you had to break into. Remember that room you had
Oh
to go
yeah, I
in?
was thinking more about Last of Us Part Two,
Oh,
and
that
one
too.
for
Yeah,
that
yeah,
matter.
that too. Yep. That too. Yeah.
Many
So
many
yeah, at
times.
any rate, it's
um,
but it's funny that I mentioned that though, because actually I come to think about it in the campaign in COD. One of the ways you're breaking in is by you have to look at the keypad to see which numbers are worn the
that's
most,
right. I'd forgotten about that.
and
I
choose and
forgot
try to
about
get
that. Yeah,
guess
because
it.
it
Yeah,
was a vision thing you use, and you could see the. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no, the
So
flashlight. It was the flashlight.
oh yeah. So there's
Right.
yeah, again, everything has its levels of security, and
Yeah.
it's I just changed out a lock on my back door. The old one, the batteries kept going dead. I didn't like it, and it was terrible.
Right.
This one's a UFI. It's made by Anchor. Anchor makes great products. Actually, I really like it. And it has a thumbprint on the outside, and it's a digital keypad, so I have nothing to wear out. But it also has
Still leave
a
specific
physical
fingerprints.
key. So I have true. I have a
Fingerprints.
physical key. I have a touchpad, and I have a thumbprint that I can use to open the door with. So
Right.
you have
said,
multiple
though,
ways
the
of doing
keypad
things.
leaves fingerprints.
Right. Yes, I understand.
Yeah, which is the
Yes.
same thing as wearing out, really, when you think about
Well,
it.
yeah, but I mean, there's going to be fingerprints all over the place, so that's a little harder to probably determine,
A
what that
little
is.
harder,
But
maybe. But the bottom line is that for me, that would be a backup that I would use if necessary, and then probably wipe it down later. I would use the thumb,
yeah,
for
well, yeah,
fingerprint,
yeah.
whatever.
And it's
100% I would
one
do that.
touch instead of touching 4 or 5, 6 numbers. I mean, it's just one
Right.
touch and it's unlocks. I mean,
Yeah,
it's quicker,
exactly.
safer. So yeah, because it doesn't matter if they know your thumb's there. If your print is not on their thumb,
Yeah.
so they can
And
put their
if
thumb
some
there all
people
they
say,
want.
"Oh, well, yeah, but I don't see how that's more secure because somebody could just cut your hand off."
Sure. Okay.
Well, they could do that and take the key from you too. What's your point? I mean,
Right.
that doesn't make any sense. Oh, well, if I carry this, I can get shot. Well, you could get shot anyways.
I mean, ultimately, if somebody really wants in bad enough, they're going to find a way. Maybe they even drive their car through the side of
right
your
through
house.
the window. Break
But
the window and walk in the big
it's
gaping hole where the window used to be.
it's about making it as hard as you can.
Yes.
Making it as hard as you
Make,
can.
yeah, make it so that it's not something they can walk in without making any noise within 5 seconds. If
Yeah.
they have to break a window to get in, that's going to be the way they're going to have to do it because they're not coming through the front door unless they kick
Yeah.
it in real hard.
Crooks want convenience.
Yeah,
They don't want like
absolutely.
this takes me an hour to break in. I want to break in
They
5
don't want to
seconds.
draw the attention. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's
Eh,
not. It's just easier. And
Yeah.
by the way, as you had mentioned, yeah, there was a little incident earlier this week at work, and there was a hacking. Apparently, everything got shut down, and we couldn't do a lot at work. Obviously, all the system was down, and I remember saying to one of the younger gentlemen working there, I said, I have no idea what they got into or how much they got into or if it included anything to do with personnel. But if it did and they got anybody's names and information because we get paid by direct deposit, that means banking information is available. So make sure you change your password. He said, why would I have to do that?
Yeah. You told me that.
I,
People wonder why they get breached.
I had to explain the whole thing to him. I still don't think he understood what I was trying to say. I was saying, listen, do you not use biometric? He says, no, I use the password on my phone. Why? Oh, well, I like it better. People, if you don't
Yeah.
have a passkey, you still need to use the biometric. And if you work for a place that's hacked and your banking information is on their servers, you need to change your banking password. Don't say, "Oh, but I use my fingerprint and or face ID," because it doesn't matter if it's not a passkey. that means the password is still there. So it can still be used by the hacker. May not have your password from his hack, but once he has your information, there's ways to hack into that too. So
Yeah.
change your password.
It
Keep on
never
that.
ceases to amaze me how some people still think swiping a credit card is more secure than chip and pin or tap and pay. Tap and pay is the most secure because, like a passkey, it literally uses a temporary digital credit card number that vanishes the instant the
Yeah,
transaction is
yeah,
done.
and it
Immediately.
technically is a temporary passkey, by the way.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point of it. And they don't call it a passkey, but I think they did originally, by the way. They changed that almost immediately, though. But yeah, it's basically the same idea to a point. Is what do they call it? It's a oh god, I forgot the right term for it now. But yeah, it's exactly it. It's basically a different number that they see, which isn't the number that actually gets processed. Your account gets processed, but not the card number.
Right.
So it's given another key. It is a key, actually, now that I think about it. It's given a key that it can use, but it's a one time use key. And it will show differently every time. Now, the fake number that cannot be used any other time, any other way, is what they see. They don't see your actual credit card or bank card number. They see
Right.
the fake one. But that fake one is not actually tied to your account past you and that one transaction. So they can't just go, okay, well, I'm going to charge this number again now. Because it's going to be like, wait, it didn't come from there.
Right. And
So,
even
no.
if somebody were to somehow come up with some kind of technology to be able to intercept this digital transaction, it's it's digitally tied to that specific transaction from that
Yeah.
specific terminal, et cetera, et cetera. So even if they could capture it before your transaction was done, which is going to be, I'm not going to say impossible because, things can have, technology is technology, but
Yeah.
they can't use it again because it's literally like chained to that particular transaction and then it disappears as soon as the transaction is approved. It's gone
That's right.
or
So,
declined. It doesn't matter. Approved, declined. As soon as it's done, it's done.
yeah. So
So
tap to pay.
tap
I'm
and
not
pay
talking
people.
about. I'm not even talking about with your card, because when you tap with your card, you're actually tapping your actual card. When you tap with your phone is what we're talking about, or your watch.
Well, no, but actually, the tap and pay on the card doesn't use your actual card number either.
Well, no, that's true. No, it doesn't. But it's also not as secure as tapping with your phone because it's still technically tied to the card. You tap with your phone and it's really not. It's actually saying, hey, uh, my account is over here and I'm going to authorize you to take this money, but here's the key. You can only use it once.
Yeah,
The card basically says, hey, here's the key. You can use it tomorrow if you want to.
yeah, and
But you're going to have
every
to ask. But
phone.
you're but I wasn't finished. But you have to ask permission to use it the second time. But when you tap with your phone, there's no giving a second permission. It's one time use only. Every time you tap with your phone.
Look, every phone within the last probably 5 or 6 years is capable of NFC with tap and pay.
Should
Your
be longer than
watch
that, more than that.
probably every watch in the last few years can do tap and pay. I never forget that my first watch, it was a Pixel watch. First time I did tap and pay with the watch, and the lady looked at me. She's like, "Did you just pay with your watch?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am,
Yeah, I had the
did."
same reaction.
It just
too.
like just blew her mind.
I had the same reaction too when it happened to me, and it was around the same time. But it wasn't maybe 8, 9 months later. I noticed that nobody was surprised, even if nobody else in line was paying with their phone or their watch. I went to tap and I said, "Are you not surprised that I'm using my phone?" She said, "No, everybody does it." And that's how fast it switched in Canada, anyways. Because the
Oh
thing
yeah, no,
is,
it's like that here.
we were using the chip and pin years before it became even remotely popular in the U.S. And we started doing tap to pay with our cards so long ago. I don't even remember the last time I had to use chip and pin.
Yeah.
It's just always tap. For the last
Well,
three
there's still
years,
some
I've been
places I go
tapping my
to that don't
phone
have it,
only.
and I just shake my head like, why are you not using tap and pay? I don't understand
Yeah,
why
but
I can't.
you don't still swipe your card, do you?
I never. Well,
Yeah,
I take that
because
back.
I have a rule, and once chip and pin became predominant in Canada, I wouldn't do business anywhere where they still had the swipe machines. They basically had mandated that they had to get rid of them by a certain amount of time because they were so insecure. But some business held out to the last day. I did not do business with them until they switched to the chip and pin.
Yeah, the last time I used a
That's by the way
swipe,
almost 15 years ago in Canada.
I was traveling and I stopped at a gas station that, I mean, it wasn't like, it didn't look super old, but like all their pumps, had the credit card
The
thing. And I'm
ones that go
looking at it going,
ding, ding, ding
well, no, wasn't
yeah.
that old. But I'm looking at it going, okay, there's a swipe. I'm like, where's the tap and pay? And I went in and asked, they're like, no, we don't have that. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have that? Like you don't even have, they didn't have chip and pin. Like, no, you have to swipe it. I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Did you
So
already pump gas?
I used well, no, I mean, you had to authorize first before you pump, but I had to get gas. I had no option. I was like, there was another gas station within.
Did they at least have the thing?
No.
You know, the old fashioned.
Oh no, I know what you're talking about. No, it wasn't that old. But I went out to the pump and swiped my card, but I used a credit card instead of my debit card because the credit card has more protection.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well,
you could also put
you
could also put a freeze on it temporarily.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I can't believe like we are in this day and age and you don't have, they're super, well, again, I'm not a programmer. I'm not a chip and pin swipe reader installer, but it's literally just changing out the board, putting it back on. It's like a whole front. It's like, I've seen people do it.
Yeah, because that's how the scammers do it.
It's not
It's literally
complicated
that
anymore,
simple.
people.
Because it used to be they just put something over top of these, right? But now the more sophisticated scammers actually swap out the entire thing. Now the problem is that they've also figured out how to do that with the chip and pin in some places. It's not as prevalent and it costs more money for them to even get it, but it does happen. So once
I don't know
again,
about Canada, but here in the States, they have the gas stations now literally have security tape all around where the thing opens. Everywhere that you can take something off is a security tape that just doesn't peel off.
I don't believe I've seen that yet here, but I think our gas pumps are way more sealed in. Like it's like an entire unit's right there, and because everyone taps, almost no one puts the chip. There's no swiping on a gas pump. At least not that I know of. There might be some, cheaper, older stations maybe, but they're still relatively newer pumps, and they still have the ability to tap. But people just tap. They tap. Most of them tap their phone. Some of them will tap their card, and that's it. And see, the thing is that a lot of people didn't get to it for a long time because at least in Canada, it was always like, oh, they're gonna authorize $400, and you're putting in like $10 worth of gas, and you don't get that money back for several days, right? Well, I'm not going to do that. I need $10 worth of gas. I'm not paying $400. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've got a big truck and you have to actually pay $350 for gas. You'd be happy when that $50 comes back. You go, oh, I forgot about that. But you don't want to do that when you want to buy 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 worth of gas, right? But they got rid of that a long time ago because they wanted people to start tapping at the pump and get rid of the lines, have more people go through. They can sell more gas. It's easier. The banks are begging the gas stations to do it just so they can, get their fees, obviously. And so it became a thing it's a lot faster and a lot easier. Now you just go up to the pump and everything's prepay now because of all the ass clowns that have stolen everything and pumping gas and driving off without paying, thieves everywhere.
Yeah.
So you have to pay before you go.
Takes a few to ruin it for the many.
One major advantage in that before that was implemented, I have to admit, sometimes I would spend more money than I needed to for the amount of gas. I wasn't always prepared to fill my tank if I didn't have a heck of a lot of money at the time. So I'd be like, okay, well, I really only need to put $20 worth of gas in. That'll get me then, to and from work for the next 5 days. So I'll put 25 in just in case I need to go to the store a couple times and that kind of thing, right? But before you had to prepay, I would just oh shit, it's full. $38. All right, well there goes my lunch.
So if you're looking at your watch, are you watching the secondhand go around because there's no smartwatch back then?
Well, yeah, basically.
Oh, look.
No, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm not talking about that long ago. I only started tapping at gas stations like 3 years ago. It was around longer than that, but like I said, I was never informed that they had dropped the $400 deposit. So, or not deposit, but hold.
Yeah, it's never been like
So
it's never been that much here. They still do that here, but it's usually like $75 or something or $100.
Yeah, no, it's always been more than that. There are very few gas stations that will still do that, but they're usually rural gas stations in the middle of nowhere, and they're way more concerned about fraud. I don't know why, because they have the same protections that you and I do when you use a Visa or a MasterCard, or even your bank card, especially if it's a Visa or MasterCard debit, right? Because
well, I
it's
think
just a lot
it
easier.
stems to like everything else we've been talking about. It stems from education. People aren't educated on how everything works and how easy it is
Yeah,
and how secure it is, and
that's
so
right.
they're just
Security
not
everywhere.
educated on it. Yeah.
But I just have one
So
question before we, start to wrap things up: is how secure is the moon? I forgot to say I am Lionel and I am from Toronto, by the way. We should wrap it up. How long has it been? I'm
it's an
guessing it's
hour.
getting close. Yeah.
It's an hour. So
I can't see the
yeah,
time on here. Oh, actually, I can see it when it hits an hour, and that's it. I can't see how much over. That's weird.
interesting. Yeah. Well, we didn't talk hockey today on purpose. We'll probably talk hockey next time when this series, when the second round is over and all this
Right.
stupid shit is done because there's a bunch
Jets are in
of
trouble. Toronto's getting in trouble.
yeah. So, anyways, as he said, Lionel from Toronto. I'm Robert from Nashville. Peace.